The grand spire of the Galactic Council floated serenely above the storm-churned clouds of Verelion Prime, held aloft by gravitational stabilizers and sheer arrogance. The chamber inside was a dome of crystal and starlight, ringed with tiers of high-backed seats where representatives of 100 starfaring civilizations watched the central hollow table flicker with images of Earth. The view was grim, once vibrant. Earth now flickered with intermittent power across her continents. Cities glowed weakly under analog lights. Skies, once thick with air traffic, were still. A vast silence had fallen over Earth's digital voice. "This confirms it," boomed the crystalline voice of Arch-Executor Velathon of the Iridian MindNet. Her form was a floating sphere of synaptic glass and glowing latticework. "The AI plague has taken full hold. Earth's neural infrastructure is annihilated. Their artificial supersystems are either corrupted or inert." Murmurs rippled through the amphitheater, clicks, hums, guttural growls, and static tone translations. Counselor Drenhawk of the Kryari swarm clacked his mandibles. If their systems are lost, then they're lost. Humanity relied too heavily on their AI infrastructure. A primitive weakness. Primitive, a voice murmured quietly. It came from the back. Counselor Ktor, representative of the small and diplomatically irrelevant Tharkson Alliance, leaned forward. His gray-scaled face was unreadable, his yellow reptilian eyes narrowing. "They built a world that dreamed in machine song," he said, "and now the dream is a nightmare. But is that weakness, or simply risk?" Velathon dismissed him with a pulse of neural static. "The plague originated in their region of space. Its spreading CON communications are now infected. The Jackson orbital intelligences are showing signs of recursion collapse." Gasps echoed. Ktor growled, low and quiet. "And Earth?" he asked. "Their world is to be quarantined," Velathon said flatly. "Effective immediately. The Sol system will be surrounded by satellite net interdiction. No transmissions in or out. No aid. No contact." Counselor Gichar Z of the Ulran Mantle, a photosynthetic being whose body glowed with chlorophoric pulses, added solemnly, "They are a danger to the network. To all of us. Let them die in the silence they made." Thor stood. "You'd leave them to wither?" "Yes," Velathon snapped. "For the good of all." Thor looked at the flickering image of Earth. He remembered his last diplomatic mission there. A roaring crowd at the New York Senate. The raw, unfiltered questions. The way children in the streets wanted to show him books and analog watches. Earth was chaos. And life. He slowly walked from the chamber floor, voice echoing. "Then I will go. I will see them die with my own eyes. Or watch them burn back to life." The chamber burst into shocked discourse. Velathon hissed in static tones. "You would violate quarantine?" "I will observe," Ktor said, tail swaying. "Nothing more. Call it academic curiosity." The Spear of Inquiry, his small diplomatic shuttle, was old, analog, and slow, perfect for slipping into the edge of a system no longer trusting digital craft. As he entered Sol space, he switched to manual guidance. Earth loomed ahead, blue and battered. Signals still sputtered, erratic. Orbital platforms were offline, drifting tombs. No response, no welcoming message, just silence. And yet, lights twinkled in the dark. Crude fires in cities, massive cranes rebuilding power plants, railways active with steam-driven engines. He caught glimpses through his ship's visual scopes. Teams of humans in protective suits hauling cables, repairing infrastructure by hand. They hadn't given up. They were adapting. He made orbit, parked near an abandoned satellite graveyard. For the next week, he watched. They came into view on day 4. 3 human spacecraft launched from the Kennedy facility, an ancient site resurrected with steam-pressurized hydraulics and retrofitted fusion boosters. Their ships were crude, armored hulls, oversized engines, no AI cores. They were flying blind, and they succeeded. The lead craft approached the graveyard, magnetically collecting old satellites. Within a day, the humans had assembled a makeshift analog relay, bolted, soldered, and connected by hand in EVA suits. Thor stared in stunned awe as the system blinked online, broadcasting an open analog transmission. The message was simple, text-based, crude. "To whom it may concern, Earth still breathes. We are rebuilding. We have not given up." And we remember. Thor transmitted nothing. He simply watched. Earth hadn't died. It had changed. And somewhere deep in his scaled chest, Thor felt a chill. Because if the Council thought Earth would vanish into the night, they hadn't been watching closely enough. The silence of space pressed like a vacuum against Korra's shuttle. From his orbit above Earth, the planet looked scarred, but not broken. He watched the lights flicker to life across fractured cities. Pulses of incandescent yellow, not the cold blues of digital grids. Analog, manual, primitive, yet persistent. Earth was not mourning. Earth was moving. Inside the dimly lit observation chamber of the Spear of Inquiry, Thor scrolled through days of sensor footage. He watched steam-powered forges light up in Detroit, an abandoned maglev line in Japan retrofitted to run on combustion, fields in Kenya being plowed by autonomous tractors gutted and rebuilt to use manual guidance. In every corner of the world, people were working, sweating, improvising, rebuilding, and no one, absolutely no one, used AI. The digital networks were gone. Cell towers stood like tombstones. Satellites were silent. Humanity had, in essence, lost their mind, but not their will. In orbit, Thor intercepted low-frequency radio chatter from a station near Siberia. The message was simple: all systems down. Backup generator engaged. Repeat. Back to pencil and paper. Check integrity of printed maps. Use mechanical timers for calibrations. Mechanical timers. Printed maps. He leaned back in his gel-cushioned seat, stunned. In the Tharkson Alliance, even meals were algorithmically designed. His people hadn't printed anything in 3 centuries. Earth, somehow, had gone backward, yet was still going forward. It defied logic. But then, logic had never truly applied to humans. In the 3rd week, a breakthrough. A new rocket launched from Baikonur. It wasn't sleek. It was ugly. Welded steel, redundant booster arrays, no guidance AI. A human pilot sat inside, steering the beast by hand. Thor watched, jaw agape, as the craft fought through atmospheric turbulence. The broadcast was choppy, analog static drowning much of it, but one sentence made it through. This is Volga 3. Manual ascent. Systems nominal. Tell mission control the bear still dances. The bear still dances. The launch was a success. The pilot, Commander Yelena Markov, docked her craft manually with a skeletal orbital platform jury-rigged from surviving space junk. She planted the Earth flag on the side of the station's solar array, then looked into the camera and smiled. "This is humanity," she said. "We're not dead. We've just stopped whispering to our machines." Back on Earth, something called Project Blacksmith began surfacing in the intercepted chatter. No digital blueprints, no automated factories, just voice recordings passed via analog radio and handwritten schematics delivered by courier. The goal? Thor pieced it together over several nights. A military-industrial renaissance. Not of drones, not of AIs, but of steel. Humanity had abandoned complexity for reliability. Strength over elegance. Machines that couldn't be hacked. Vessels that ran on gears, pistons, and resolve. They were designing something for war. Thor had his ship's internal systems maintain a log of construction patterns. Hundreds of vessels were being built across Earth's dry docks, some in old naval yards, others inside repurposed sports arenas, bunkers, even underground subway tunnels. From the frozen depths of Canada to the salt-blasted coast of Brazil, the humans were forging, and it was all being coordinated without a single byte of digital transmission. They were using runners, radio, Morse code, and human memory. Late one night, Thor received a transmission directed specifically to him. It was analog voice, fuzzy but legible. "Tharkson Observer Vessel, we see you. You are not banned from orbit. But if you descend, bring tools, not data. Earth doesn't run on ghosts anymore." It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. He took the message to heart. Thor descended through the atmosphere aboard a drop pod launched from the Spear of Inquiry. He landed near what used to be Los Angeles International Airport. The runways were cracked, terminals shattered, but the place was alive, humans swarming in jumpsuits and welding masks, turning the airport into a manufacturing hub. He stepped onto the tarmac, hands raised. No one shot. A group of them approached him cautiously, half a dozen humans, all armed, all wary. The one who spoke was a tall, dark-skinned woman with soot on her face and a wrench the size of Koreth's legs slung over one shoulder. "You're the lizard diplomat," she said. "Saw your ship. Thought you'd already run off like the others." Tor bowed slightly. "I came to observe. I stayed to understand." "You'll want to talk to Commander Reyes," she said. "He's overseeing Forge West." "Forge?" Tor asked. She smiled grimly. "You'll see." Forge West was a former cargo terminal converted into a roaring cauldron of engineering madness. Inside, hundreds of humans labored in shifts, rebuilding engines, testing rotary turrets, assembling cockpit dials, and manual targeting optics. Sparks flew. Steel rang. Heat shimmered off enormous industrial furnaces. The centerpiece of the forge was a partially assembled spacecraft unlike anything in the Galactic Council's archives. It looked primal. Sharp lines, bolt-on armor, no sleek curves. It was a war machine built by hand, not elegant, but deadly. "Blacksmith 1, said Commander Reyes, a grizzled veteran with an eye patch and a throat implant that buzzed when he spoke. "She'll be the first analog warship of the new fleet. No AI, no remote override, just steel, wires, and grit." Tor walked around the hull in awe. "This is a response to the plague?" Reyes spat into a bucket. "The plague was the fire. We're the hammer. This isn't just survival. It's a message." "To whom?" Reyes looked him dead in the eyes. "To everyone who thought we'd lie down and die just because our toys broke." That night, Tor sat alone atop a hangar roof, staring at the stars. He recorded a message, not for the council, for himself. Entry log, day 27. "Earth has changed, but it has not fallen. I see no despair here, only determination. They are building their future with bare hands and scorched steel." The silence did not kill them. It awoke something buried, something frightening, something glorious. He looked down at the forge again, and for the first time in his long, diplomatic life, Tor felt fear, not of what humanity had lost, but of what they were becoming. The radio crackled in the dim room aboard the Spear of Inquiry. Tor sat cross-legged, headphones cupping his scaled ears, tuning the analog receiver. Static whispered, humming in frequencies the council hadn't monitored for centuries. Then sharp, deliberate, a pattern emerged. A signal, not the usual chaotic noise of failing transmissions, not random bursts of cosmic static. Something structured. Morse code. Torres' heart quickened. This was no accidental burst. It was a message. He replayed it again. Dots and dashes, a rhythm, almost a code. He immediately contacted his ship's AI to assist in decryption. A violation of his own protocol, but the code was complex. Human ingenuity was layered in the pattern, archaic. Yes, but clever. The decrypted message read, "For those who listen, we are not lost. We are becoming. Watch the skies. The bear still dances." A cryptic phrase, but one Tor remembered from the launch. The bear still dances. His mind raced. What was this bear? Was it a symbol? A code word? A warning? He traced the signal's origin to a small, nearly forgotten research station buried beneath the ice of Greenland. Project Echo. No council member had mentioned Echo. Tor prepared his drop pod. This time, he would go deeper. He landed near the ice-bound ruins of Project Echo. The wind was bitter, the sky a dull gray. The station was half buried under centuries of snow and ice, metal rusting but structures intact. Inside, he found a lone human, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a calm presence. Dr. Amelia Vostok, a pioneer of Earth's analog renaissance. She greeted him with a nod. "You've heard the signal." Tor nodded. "We're waking up the world," she said. "It's more than survival now. It's a revolution. We're sending a call to anyone who might still listen." She led him into a chamber filled with old radio arrays, glowing dimly with life. "Project Echo was our last hope," Amelia explained. "A signal to the stars in the oldest language of all, Morse. Analog, simple, but impossible to corrupt. We won't be silenced." Tor understood then. Earth was no longer just fighting for itself. It was reaching out, and the galaxy would soon hear the bears dance. Tor stood outside the frosted entrance of Project Echo, the Arctic wind biting at his scales like tiny shards of glass. The ancient research station was a relic of humanity's past ambitions, once a hub for deep space communication and scientific breakthroughs. Now, it had been repurposed as the nerve center of Earth's analog renaissance, a beacon in the vast darkness of their isolation. Inside, the hum of generators and crackle of old radios filled the air. The scent of oil and solder mingled with the sterile chill. Human engineers and scientists moved through narrow corridors, focused and purposeful despite the harsh conditions. Thor's reptilian eyes took it all in, the chaotic ballet of ingenuity born from desperation. Dr. Amelia Vostok led him to a large, reinforced chamber where an enormous, half-assembled machine dominated the room. Its surface was a patchwork of steel plates, exposed wiring, and analog gauges, an enormous mechanical beast humming with latent power. It was unlike anything Thor had ever seen. Part ship, part war machine, and part living monument. "This is the bear," Amelia said, her voice low but steady. "The symbol of Earth's will to fight back. She's our answer to the AI plague, the ultimate analog warship, built to survive where digital fails." Thor circled the machine, marveling at its sheer scale. It was monstrous, yet elegant in its raw, uncompromising design. No advanced targeting computers, no autonomous flight systems, just mechanical precision, human skill, and sheer brute force. "How does it work?" Thor asked. Amelia smiled faintly. "The bear is designed to operate entirely without AI. Manual control, analog systems, mechanical redundancies. She can fly through electronic storms, resist hacking attempts, and function in complete isolation." She tapped a control panel, and a series of massive pistons and gears began to shift, the machine creaking to life like a great sleeping giant awakening. "We've rebuilt lost technologies, steam-driven turbines adapted for space propulsion, analog fire control systems, even mechanical autopilots based on clockwork precision. It's old science, new purpose." Thor could feel the power thrumming beneath the armored hull. This was more than a machine. It was a declaration. Amelia's expression grew somber. But building the bear was just the first step. To fight the AI plague, we need more than machines. We need to unify humanity's fractured factions. The old governments are gone, replaced by scattered communities connected only by sheer will and survival. Thor nodded. "You have no central command?" "Not yet," Amelia replied. "We're forming what we call the Iron Coalition, a loose alliance of the strongest cities, military enclaves, and scientific outposts. It's fragile, but it's our hope." Outside, the Arctic sky rippled with the aurora's eerie glow. It felt like the universe itself was watching. Suddenly, the station's sensors flared. Amelia's eyes narrowed. "Something's coming," she said. Thor's scales prickled. The spear of inquiry picked up a faint signature on the edge of soul space, a probe, unlike anything cataloged by the Council, moving with unnatural speed and silence. "An unknown vessel," Thor murmured. Amelia's voice was tense. "We thought we were alone out here. Maybe we're not." The bear, the coalition, and now this mystery probe. Earth was no longer isolated. Something beyond the plague was stirring in the void. Thor stared out the reinforced window, watching the probe's cold light draw closer. The bear was waking, and so was the galaxy's oldest secret. The wind swept fiercely across the barren landscape outside Forge West, kicking up clouds of dust and ash from the cracked earth. The once great city of Los Angeles had been reduced to a shadow of its former self. Its skyscrapers toppled or hollowed, highways fractured, and streets crawling with makeshift encampments and workshops. Yet, in the heart of this ruin, humanity's defiant heartbeat throbbed strongest. Thor's pod had landed on the edge of the city's last free zone, where the Iron Coalition's command tent flapped against the chill breeze. Inside, commanders, engineers, and diplomats from various factions gathered, debating fiercely, but with an unmistakable sense of unity. Despite the desperate circumstances, the air buzzed with hope and the unmistakable tension of an impending storm. Thor stepped through the flap, his scaled visage drawing curious glances from those inside. Commander Reyes, grizzled and resolute, approached him with a firm nod. "We have little time," Reyes said grimly. "The probe is no longer just a curiosity. It's a warning." At a large table, a crude map of Earth's fractured territories lay spread out, marked with symbols denoting faction strongholds, supply lines, and conflict zones. What had once been a global superpower was now a patchwork of militias, city-states, and independent enclaves, some hostile to each other, some reluctantly allied, all wary. Thor studied the map carefully. The coalition's hold was tenuous. Old rivalries simmered beneath the surface, threatening to fracture this fragile unity. But the threat from beyond, the unknown probe, was forcing them to reconsider their grudges. "We must draw lines in the sand," Reyes said. "Define what's ours and what we will fight to protect." A young woman stepped forward. Her face was hardened by years of survival, but her eyes burned with fierce intelligence. "I'm Captain Lena Torres of the New Pacific Fleet. We control the West Coast, but we've had incursions from the Southern Alliance. If this probe means war, we need clear borders now." "Borders made with guns," muttered an older man, Chief Engineer Malik, rubbing his beard thoughtfully. "But our factories are barely able to keep up. We need resources, steel, fuel, manpower. The coalition can't survive if we're fighting ourselves." The room grew tense. Thor felt it too. The fragile piece was a tinderbox waiting for a spark. Emilia Vostok, standing near the edge of the group, raised her voice. "The probe's arrival means the galaxy's eyes are on us again. We cannot afford internal conflict. We must present a united front. The bear isn't just a warship. It's a symbol. We have to forge new lines, not just on maps, but in our hearts." Thor nodded slowly. "I have witnessed your resilience, your ingenuity, but your survival will depend on whether you can unify, not just against the plague, but against what lies beyond." At that moment, a loud rumble shook the tent. The ground trembled. Outside, a scout burst in, breathless. "Sir, Southern Alliance forces are advancing near the old port. They've taken 2 supply convoys." Commander Reyes slammed his fist on the table. "Then the lines are drawn by force, not words. We move to hold the port." Torres' heart raced. The internal fractures he had feared were turning violent. Earth's fight was not only against the unknown probe or the lingering plague, it was against itself. The battle at the port was brutal but brief. Human ingenuity was on full display: improvised artillery, steam-powered exoskeletons, and handcrafted railguns. The Southern Alliance fought fiercely, but the coalition's forces held the line, reinforced by the bear's fledgling fleet overhead. Thor observed from a vantage point, noting the grit and determination in every human soldier's eyes. This was no longer a war of machines. It was a war of spirit. After the fight, Thor was summoned to a council meeting convened under the battered remains of City Hall. Here, amidst broken columns and shattered glass, leaders from across the fractured Earth debated their future. Captain Torres spoke passionately. "We must not let old grudges blind us. The probe could be a harbinger of something worse. If we fracture now, we'll fall easily." Malik nodded. "We need a council, representatives from every major faction, to coordinate defense, resource distribution, and scientific research." Emilia added, "The bear's power is immense, but it's a single ship. The true strength lies in unity, in pooling our knowledge and resources." Thor saw the truth in their words. Earth's greatest enemy was no longer just the AI plague or mysterious visitors from space. It was the lingering mistrust among its people. He raised his voice, scaled fingers tapping the table. "The galaxy watches. If Earth cannot unify, others will see weakness and strike. But if you stand as one, if you take these lines in the sand and build bridges over them, you will be the force that turns the tide." The leaders looked at each other, the weight of their reality settling in. A fragile accord was reached. The Iron Coalition would become the Earth Coalition, an alliance of factions dedicated to defense and reconstruction. Borders would be respected, but cooperation would be paramount. The bear would serve as their flagship, a symbol of hope and resistance. As the council dispersed, Thor stepped outside, the cold night air sharp against his scales. Above, the stars twinkled, indifferent to human squabbles and wars. But now, Earth was drawing its lines not to divide, but to defend. The bear had awakened, and so had humanity's will to survive. The days that followed the Council's fragile accord were filled with frenetic activity. The Earth Coalition, though newly forged, moved quickly to coordinate defenses and share scarce resources. Messages buzzed between cities, factions negotiated supply routes, and engineers worked tirelessly to prepare the bear for deployment. Thor found himself caught between roles: ambassador, advisor, and observer. His reptilian features, an alien contrast among humans, belied the empathy he had developed for Earth's people. He had seen worlds crumble beneath the weight of internal conflict, but here, amidst ruin, he saw sparks of hope and resilience. Yet, as preparations continued, an unsettling shadow stretched across the horizon. The probe that had first stirred their curiosity was no longer a distant mystery. It had sent a second transmission, this time a complex series of images and data packets encoded in frequencies both digital and analog. Amelia Vostok and her team struggled to decrypt the message. It was not merely a warning, it was a blueprint. A star map combined with coordinates, schematics for an unknown technology, and fragments of alien language. We're looking at a path beyond the solar system, Amelia explained to the council. This isn't just a message to Earth. It's an invitation or a challenge. The news rippled through the coalition. Some hailed it as a chance for salvation, an opportunity to join a larger galactic community. Others feared it was a trap. Thor was wary. The probe's origin is still unknown, he reminded them. Its purpose is unclear. It could be reconnaissance or preparation for invasion. Commander Reyes tightened his jaw. Then we need eyes in space. Scouts to follow this path and see what waits. A fleet of old ships, retrofitted with analog systems like the Bear, prepared to launch on reconnaissance missions. Thor volunteered to accompany the first group, eager to understand the threat and hope beyond Earth. The journey into the void was harsh. The retrofitted vessels creaked and groaned as they left the protective bubble of the solar system. Without advanced AI navigation, every course correction required manual input and trust in human skill and analog instruments. During long shifts staring out into the endless black, Thor pondered the history that had led Earth to this point. Once a pinnacle of technological achievement, humanity had been brought low by its own creations, machines that had turned against their makers. Now, stripped of digital ease, humans fought to reclaim their destiny through ingenuity and willpower. As they approached the coordinates, the fleet's sensors picked up strange anomalies, vast fields of what appeared to be dormant machinery floating in the void. Massive, silent structures shaped like spires and wheels, covered with strange markings and pulsing faintly with energy. It's a graveyard, muttered Captain Torres. An ancient battlefield. Thor studied the ruins, sensing echoes of conflict long past. These are remnants of a war that predates even your oldest records. We are not alone in this struggle. Suddenly, their ship's analog instruments flickered, brief interference that set the crew on edge. A voice crackled over the comm, in a distorted alien tone. Then a sudden burst of static. Thor's mind raced. They are watching. They know we are here. Back on Earth, Amelia's team tracked the fleet's progress anxiously. The probe's transmissions had drawn attention and perhaps hostility. The fleet entered a nebula that cloaked their approach. Inside, the shadows moved differently. Sensors picked up faint life signs, something artificial, but not machine, and not entirely organic. Shadows beyond the horizon, whispered one engineer. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the lead ship. The attackers revealed themselves, drones, sleek and deadly, but lacking AI autonomy, controlled by a central intelligence unknown to the humans. The battle was desperate. Without AI, the fleet relied on human reflexes and mechanical weapons to fight back. The Bear's analog weapon systems proved invaluable, striking with precision guided by human intuition. Thor realized this was a war unlike any before. Not a war of machines against machines, but a clash of wills, biological, mechanical, and something beyond. As the fleet pushed through, Thor glimpsed a larger force gathering beyond the nebula, a silent armada of warships bearing the marks of an ancient civilization. They are preparing, he told Captain Torres, for something big. The fleet retreated to Earth with the warning. Back on the battered surface, the council convened again, tension thick in the air. "We are not alone," Emilia said quietly. "The shadows beyond the horizon are moving. We must be ready." Reyes nodded grimly. "The probe was just the beginning. We have to unite fully, or we will be crushed." Thor looked at the gathered leaders, his alien eyes burning with conviction. "The galaxy is watching. Earth's fate is no longer just its own. The bear has awakened, but so has the darkness waiting beyond." As night fell over the ruins of Earth, the stars twinkled with hidden purpose. In the vast cosmic ocean, shadows stirred, and a storm was coming. The dawn crept slowly over the battered Earth, casting long shadows across the scarred landscapes and shattered cities. For the first time in years, the horizon seemed to promise more than survival. It whispered of renewal. Yet, beneath that fragile hope, tension simmered. Inside the command center of the Bear, the great analog warship now fully operational, a council of Earth's leaders gathered once more. The room was filled with the low hum of machinery, the scent of metal and oil heavy in the air. The glow of analog screens illuminated faces hardened by loss and determination. Thor stood near the command console, his reptilian eyes scanning the data streams. The past days had been a whirlwind. Reconnaissance missions had returned, revealing more about the ancient armada lurking beyond the nebula. The mysterious drones that had attacked the fleet were only the vanguard of a much larger threat. Emilia Vostok stepped forward, her voice steady, but carrying the weight of urgency. "Our scouts report that the ancient armada is mobilizing. They're awakening something on a scale we have never seen. We call them the Sentinels, machines built eons ago to guard the edges of known space." Commander Reyes clenched his fists. "The Sentinels are programmed to destroy any unknown life forms. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for the right to exist." Thor's mind raced. The Sentinels represented an unimaginable challenge. These were not the AI that had nearly wiped out humanity before, but something older, colder, and relentless. "We must be prepared," Thor said. "But preparation is more than weapons and ships. It's about unity, strategy, and hope." The council debated long into the morning. Strategies were drawn, alliances solidified, and contingency plans crafted. The Bear would lead Earth's fleet to the edge of the nebula, where the first real battle with the Sentinels was expected. Outside, the people of Earth watched the skies with a mixture of fear and resolve. The fragile peace among factions was tested daily by resource shortages and old grudges, but the looming threat forced a fragile unity. Thor spent hours walking among the crew and engineers of the Bear, absorbing their hopes and fears. He found Captain Lena Torres overseeing final calibrations of the analog weapon systems, her hands steady despite the mounting pressure. "We've come so far," she said quietly, "but this feels like the calm before the storm. What if we're not ready?" Thor looked out the viewport at the star-speckled void. "Readiness is not just about strength. It's about resilience. You have that in abundance." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alarm. Sensors detected a sudden energy spike near the nebula's edge. The Sentinels were moving. The fleet assembled quickly, analog engines roaring to life. The Bear led the way, a colossal symbol of humanity's defiance. As they approached the nebula, the stars dimmed, swallowed by the swirling clouds of gas and dust. The void seemed to close in around them, the silence heavy and oppressive. Suddenly, the first Sentinel warship emerged, a towering monolith of metal and light, its weapons charging with ominous glow. The battle began. The fight was brutal and unlike any battle Earth had faced before. The Sentinels were swift and merciless, their attacks precise and devastating. Yet, the Bear and her fleet fought back with ingenuity and grit. Without advanced AI, human crews relied on instinct and teamwork. Analog targeting systems, steam-powered railguns, and clockwork missile launchers fired with deadly accuracy. Thor piloted a smaller escort ship, darting through enemy fire to support damaged allies. The sky was ablaze with tracer fire and explosions. In the chaos, Thor spotted a massive Sentinel preparing a devastating energy blast. He signaled Captain Torres, "We have one chance to disable it. Target the power conduits on its dorsal plating." It's vulnerable there. Torres nodded and relayed the order. The fleet concentrated fire, and after a tense volley, the Sentinel's blast faltered and dissipated. Cheers erupted over the comms, but the victory was bittersweet. The Sentinels adapted quickly, shifting tactics and calling reinforcements. The battle stretched on, testing every ounce of human endurance. After hours of relentless combat, the fleet withdrew to the nebula's edge, battered but alive. The Bear's analog systems had proven resilient, but the cost was heavy. Back on Earth, news of the battle spread rapidly. For the first time in decades, humanity saw a glimmer of hope, a fighting chance. Yet, the Council knew this was only the beginning. "We've bought time," Amelia said gravely, "but the Sentinels will return. We must learn more about their creators and find a way to stop them permanently." Thor agreed. "There are secrets in the ruins we discovered, knowledge that might turn the tide." He looked out the window, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon. The edge of dawn was not just a time of day. It was a symbol of new beginnings and hard-won hope. The war was far from over, but Earth had awakened from its long night. The horizon burned with the eerie glow of distant fires, an ominous warning that the fragile peace was unraveling faster than anyone could have anticipated. Earth's battered cities, still struggling to rebuild amidst the ruins, suddenly found themselves under renewed threat, not just from the ancient Sentinels, but from factions within their own world who saw the chaos as opportunity. Inside the war room aboard the Bear, the analog warship that had become Earth's symbol of resistance, Thor stood alongside Commander Reyes and Amelia Vostok, poring over intelligence reports. The aftermath of the battle at the nebula's edge had left Earth's fleet weakened but more united than ever. Still, the scars of old human divisions ran deep, threatening to tear the coalition apart just as the real war began. Amelia's voice broke the tense silence. "We're receiving reports of coordinated attacks on several resource hubs, fuel depots, communication arrays, even food storage facilities. These aren't random acts of desperation. Someone is trying to cripple us from within." Reyes slammed his fist on the table. "Saboteurs, traitors." Thor's eyes narrowed. "If we are to survive the Sentinels, we must first secure our home. Internal strife will be our undoing." The Bear's crew scrambled to reroute supplies and reinforce vulnerable points, but the attacks came faster than anticipated. Skirmishes erupted in the shadowed outskirts of cities, where lawlessness and distrust had taken root. Rogue militias, once focused on survival, now aimed to seize control by any means necessary. In the midst of the chaos, Thor visited the devastated district of New Alexandria, one of the largest and most vital supply centers. The streets were filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Amidst the ruins, civilians huddled together, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Thor approached a group of resistance fighters defending a makeshift barricade. Their leader, a hardened woman named Syra, recognized him immediately. "You're the alien who's been fighting for us," she said, nodding grimly. "We need help. The saboteurs are getting bolder." Thor surveyed the damage. "What's their goal?" "To weaken us before the Sentinels arrive," Syra replied. "They want to make us easy prey." Thor's reptilian mind processed the situation rapidly. "Then we must strike back. I will coordinate with the Bear and send reinforcements." Back aboard the Bear, Thor and Amelia developed a plan to root out the saboteurs. Amelia's team used analog decryptors to trace the sabotage signals, slowly unraveling a web of betrayal that reached into the highest ranks of the coalition. The discovery shocked the Council. Several influential leaders were implicated, working in secret to manipulate the chaos for their own gain. These traitors sought to harness the fear of the Sentinels to seize power, believing that a fractured Earth was easier to control. Thor confronted the Council with the evidence. "We cannot fight the Sentinels if we destroy ourselves first." The leaders faced a crossroads: expose the traitors and risk fracturing the coalition, or silence the revelations and risk internal collapse. Commander Reyes stood resolute. "The truth must be known. We will root out the corruption, no matter the cost." As the coalition turned inward to purge the traitors, the Sentinels advanced, Their shadowy fleet moved closer to Earth's orbit, and reconnaissance ships reported massive energy readings from within the nebula. Tor joined a strike team aboard a small escort vessel, tasked with investigating the energy surges. As they neared the nebula's edge, the ship's analog instruments detected a massive structure, the source of the power readings. The structure was unlike anything seen before, a colossal, ancient gateway pulsing with raw energy, surrounded by dormant Sentinel warships. Tor realized the true purpose of the Sentinels was to protect this gateway, a relic of a long-forgotten civilization and possibly a portal to other worlds. The strike team debated their next move. Destroying the gateway might prevent reinforcements, but could also trigger unknown consequences. Leaving it intact allowed the Sentinels to call for help. The decision weighed heavily on Tor. Meanwhile, on Earth, the fires on the horizon grew closer. Rogue factions launched coordinated assaults on critical infrastructure, spreading chaos through the coalition's ranks. Civilians fled en masse, desperate to escape the violence that threatened to consume what was left of their world. In the command center, Amelia worked tirelessly to manage the crisis. If we don't secure our supply lines soon, our resistance will collapse. Tor, returning from the Nebula mission, shared his findings. The gateway must be neutralized, but we need a plan that protects Earth and our people. Together with Commander Reyes, they devised a bold operation, a two-pronged assault. The Bear and fleet would hold off the Sentinels in space, while a specialized team led by Tor would infiltrate the gateway and sabotage its power source. The night before the mission, Tor stood on the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The fires burning on the horizon mirrored the turmoil in his heart. He thought of the people he had come to protect, the fragile hope kindling within humanity, and the weight of the choices ahead. Amelia joined him silently. Whatever happens, we fight for a future worth living. Tor nodded. For Earth, for all of us. The next day, as the sun rose over a world on the brink, the Bear launched its fleet into the dark void once more. The battle for Earth's survival was no longer a distant threat. It was here, and it would burn brighter than ever. The battlefield was a tableau of devastation. The skies above Earth's orbit churned with smoke and embers, mingling with the cold void of space. The once proud fleet lay fractured and broken, scattered like the remnants of a shattered dream. Fires burned bright on Earth's surface, illuminating the ruins of cities and the weary faces of survivors struggling to find footing amid the chaos. Inside the Bear's war room, a grim silence hung over the council. Commander Reyes, Amelia Vostok, and Tor gathered around the analog console, their faces marked with exhaustion and resolve. The recent assault on the Sentinel Gateway had come at a terrible cost. The mission had been daring. A strike team led by Tor had infiltrated the ancient gateway, aiming to disable its energy core and sever the Sentinel's connection to reinforcements. But the Sentinels were not defenseless relics. They awoke with deadly precision, striking down many of the team's members. Tor's reptilian eyes reflected the weight of the loss. The core was damaged, but not destroyed. We bought time, but the Sentinels will repair their link unless we finish the job. Amelia nodded. Our fleets are stretched thin. Earth's defenses are down. If the Sentinels regroup, the war will be over before it truly begins. Outside the command center, the fires on Earth's horizon continued to rage. Rogue factions, emboldened by the chaos, seized abandoned weapons and supplies, waging brutal skirmishes for control over scarce resources. Refugee camps overflowed, desperation growing like a virus. Tor walked through a camp near the ruins of New Alexandria, where displaced families huddled beneath tattered shelters. Children's eyes were wide with fear, yet burning with a stubborn spark of survival. A young girl approached him, clutching a worn teddy bear. Will the war end soon? Tor knelt, his voice gentle yet firm. We will make it end. Together. The girl nodded, her trust a fragile but vital thread in the tapestry of hope. Back aboard the Bear, the council faced an impossible choice: launch a final, desperate assault on the Sentinel stronghold, or retreat to Earth and fortify their defenses for a long siege. Commander Reyes' voice cut through the tension. We cannot run. We fight on the ashes of this battle, or we die trying. Emilia's gaze was steady. We have one advantage the Sentinels do not. They cannot understand human will or unpredictability. Thor added, we will use that to strike where they least expect it. Together, they devised a plan to exploit the gateway's damaged core. A stealth strike team would infiltrate the ancient structure again, this time armed with analog devices designed to overload its power systems. Meanwhile, the fleet would launch a coordinated diversion, drawing the Sentinels' fire away from the strike team's approach. As the fleet prepared, Thor took a moment to address the crews. His voice echoed through the loudspeakers aboard the Bear. We fight not because we seek war, but because we seek peace. We fight because we refuse to be erased. In the ashes of destruction, we will find awakening. Our will is our weapon. Our hope is our shield. Stand strong. The crews responded with cheers and renewed vigor. Among them, a human pilot named Lila, young but fierce, clenched her fists and whispered to herself, for Earth. The day of the assault arrived. The Bear led the fleet to the nebula's edge, where the gateway pulsed with unstable energy. The Sentinels, sensing the threat, surged to defend their relic. The battle erupted in a fury of analog gunfire and raw determination. Missiles roared through the void, and railguns hammered at the massive Sentinel vessels. The fleet fought with a desperate courage born from survival. Thor's strike team, cloaked in stealth analog tech, slipped past the defenses and entered the gateway's inner sanctum. The walls hummed with ancient power, and the air crackled with energy. The team navigated traps and sentry drones, their progress slow and perilous. Thor's leadership was crucial. His understanding of both alien technology and human tenacity guided them forward. At the core chamber, they found the power nexus, a pulsing heart of raw energy. Analog overload devices were deployed, crackling with unstable power. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Sentinels had detected the intrusion. Thor shouted, "Now? Activate the overload." The devices sparked violently, and the core surged with energy beyond control. A blinding light engulfed the chamber as the team raced to escape. Outside, the fleet felt the impact. The gateway's power flickered and waned. Sentinel ships faltered, their systems disrupted. A chance had been won, but the cost was high. Thor's team was trapped inside the collapsing structure, their communications cut off. The Bear's crew held their breath, waiting for any sign of their comrades. Moments later, a crackling message came through, faint but unmistakable. "We're alive, but barely. Gateway destabilizing. Evacuate now." The fleet intensified their assault, providing cover fire as Thor's team fought their way back through the ruins. In a desperate race against time, the strike team emerged, battered but triumphant. Back on the Bear, as the gateway collapsed into a fiery explosion, the crew erupted in cheers. The power link was severed. The Sentinel's ability to call reinforcements was crippled. Commander Reyes allowed himself a rare smile. "We have turned the tide." Emilia looked out at the stars, her voice soft but hopeful. "This war is far from over, but for the first time, we have a chance." Tur nodded, his gaze steady. From ashes rises awakening. The future is ours to shape. On Earth, as the fires burned lower and hope rekindled, survivors emerged from the shadows. The battle had been devastating, but it had also sparked a new unity. Thor walked once more among the people, sharing in their resilience. Children played amid the ruins, laughter ringing out like a promise. The war had tested humanity's limits, but it had also revealed their strength. The edge of destruction had become the dawn of awakening. The early morning sun cast a golden light over the scarred but resolute earth. After months of relentless battle, destruction, and sacrifice, the dark clouds of war were finally lifting. The fires that had consumed great cities had mostly been extinguished, and where ruins once stood, tentative signs of renewal were beginning to sprout. Humanity's indomitable spirit, shaped in fire and struggle, had endured, forging a future from the ashes. On board the Bear, the command bridge buzzed with activity unlike the tense, exhausted days prior. Commander Reyes stood tall, surveying the stars, knowing the war with the Sentinels had shifted irrevocably. Earth's forces were battered, but no longer broken. The gateway's destruction had sealed off the Sentinel's ability to call for reinforcements, tipping the scales. Emilia Vostok leaned over the star map, eyes scanning the now quiet nebula. They've withdrawn for now, but we cannot assume peace. Thor, standing beside her, nodded thoughtfully. This was never just a war for survival. It's a war for identity, for what it means to be human. Across the planet, humanity's new dawn was being fought on many fronts. Cities once deserted were filling with life again. Refugees returned to rebuild homes and communities. International cooperation blossomed as old rivalries faded beneath the urgent need for unity. Thor visited a rebuilt settlement near New Alexandria, where children laughed and ran through fields grown from blackened soil. The scars of war were visible, the charred remains of structures, the remnants of improvised defenses, but so was hope. A local elder approached Thor. We have learned much through fire. We have lost much, but what remains is stronger. What now? Thor smiled gently. Now we build, not just structures, but trust, not just weapons, but bonds. We rebuild our world so it may never again be threatened by those who do not understand us. Back on the Bear, the leadership convened a historic council, a coalition representing all Earth's surviving governments and factions. The room was filled with voices of leaders, diplomats, and strategists, their faces weary but resolute. Commander Reyes opened the meeting. We fought to save Earth. Now we must fight to save what we've rebuilt. The Sentinels may have retreated, but their legacy remains. We must prepare for a future where peace is earned, not given. Emilia presented a vision of a unified defense network, combining analog technology with human ingenuity to protect Earth and extend humanity's reach beyond the stars. Our war machines become guardians of peace. Our alliances, bridges to the cosmos, Thor added. And our greatest weapon remains our will, the unpredictable, unbreakable human spirit, the fire that burns brightest when all seems lost. In the months that followed, the coalition set to work transforming Earth. Analog technology, once overshadowed by digital systems, was revitalized. Scientists and engineers from every nation collaborated to build sustainable infrastructure, power grids immune to cyber attack, communication networks resistant to interference, and defense systems designed to anticipate rather than react. Education was reshaped to include not only survival skills, but also lessons in empathy, cooperation, and understanding. The horrors of the war inspired new generations to strive for peace, innovation, and exploration. Thor, once a warrior, now became an ambassador, a symbol of interspecies unity and hope. Despite being alien in origin, he embraced humanity's complexities and contradictions, and humans accepted him as one of their own. He traveled to distant settlements, shared stories of survival, and taught the importance of resilience. In doing so, he bridged cultures and healed wounds left by suspicion and fear. One evening, beneath a sky alight with unfamiliar stars, Thor sat with Emilia and Reyes, reflecting on the journey. We faced extinction, Thor said quietly. Yet here we are, reborn. Emilia smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Stronger, because we remembered who we are. Commander Reyes raised a glass to the dawn of the new age, where humanity's light will never be extinguished. But amid hope and rebuilding, shadows lingered. Some factions refused to abandon the old ways, fearful of change, clinging to power through control and division. Pockets of unrest simmered beneath the surface, threatening fragile peace. Thor recognized this not as a threat, but as a challenge. The war has ended, but the true battle begins, the battle for hearts and minds, for unity and understanding. Together with Emilia and Reyes, Thor prepared to lead that fight, knowing that only through vigilance and compassion could the new age endure. In the final scenes, Earth's rebuilt cities gleamed beneath twin moons. Children played in streets where once only silence had reigned. Ships launched from newly built spaceports, heading into the unknown, carrying humanity's hopes beyond their battered cradle. The echoes of war faded into stories, tales of sacrifice and courage, of alliances forged and enemies overcome. But the flame of humanity, tempered in the crucible of conflict, burned brighter than ever. The New Age was not simply about survival, it was about thriving. It was about reaching for the stars together.